I'm so lucky to have all of these people who enjoy the authenticity and the vulnerability, and they really allow me to be myself, and I couldn't ask for anything more. And so it further encourages me to be like, okay, I'm going to keep sharing and just being real with these people about, my good days, my bad days. And if that makes at least one person feel better and feel seen or heard, I have to keep doing it because I think it's helping people.
Welcome to the Physician Pharmacist podcast, the show designed to shed some light on a very unusual pathway into medicine. I'm your host, Nathan Gartland. I'm a licensed pharmacist and fourth-year medical student. I'm also the author of PharmD to MD and the owner of the Physician Pharmacist Company. As this podcast has grown, we've had tremendous opportunity to broaden our scope and explore other non-traditional healthcare careers. Tune in to hear from our non-traditional experts serving at the frontier of medicine, technology, and innovation. Today we have special guest Dr. Rachel Southard, who is currently a PGY1 obstetrics and gynecology resident, as well as a famous YouTuber with over 234,000 subscribers. Over the years, she has become an international presence and spokesperson for the medical community, where she focuses on her experience as a clinician in training. Her content spans from the early days of medical education process, including MCAT Prep, med school admissions, day in the life of a medical student, and now, life as a resident. She has inspired millions by sharing her journey online, and I'm extremely excited to welcome her to the show today. All right, Rachel, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm really excited to have you.
Hey, yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. I'm so happy you reached out, and I'm glad that we could arrange our schedules to make this work so quickly.
Absolutely. And, I think you have a lot to share with us today, and let's take things way back to the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about what your life was like before going to medical school?
Oh gosh, before medical school. That seems like it's so long ago, and it really wasn't that long ago. Before medical school, what was I doing? Well, I was finding my way through undergraduate. Like everyone else, I was dealing with, classes being impacted, and you're just waiting to get these classes to graduate. It took me forever. So it was kind of more along the lines of, I don't want to go all the way back to like the beginning of my childhood, but, made it through high school and then community college. And I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. And then trying to get through that to transfer to a university and then make it through those classes. So before medical school, I feel like the grind with everyone else, trying to get that cookie cutter application to get in, because that's hard. It was a hard times trying to get into medical school. So just trying to build that nice application to be accepted.
Of course. And what prompted you to even want to go to medical school in the first place?
I get questioned, like I get asked that a lot. And I think that it kind of goes, there was multiple things. There was one side of me that was like, I have this weird passion to be in medicine and to do this thing. I don't know exactly what it is. Is it physical therapy? Is it something else? And then there was like family things that happened where I was like, okay, this life event makes me really intrigued by medicine and surgery in particular. And then incidences with my mom's health, and a combination of those things, I think really prompted me to be like, I think I want to do this. And it was more after deciding that, I think it was more of just being like, do I have the capacity? Do I feel that I'm capable and smart enough to do it? Which is a silly thing to doubt yourself about, but it was very much, my reality at that time. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'm just going to do it. And that was that.
Yeah, I think that's something interesting too, that a lot of students these days are wrestling with, like this imposter syndrome. Like, can I go through with this process? Can I make it into medical school? I feel like I don't have enough clinical experience or exposure. I'm not smart enough, quote unquote. So
Right.
How would you respond to students who are feeling that kind of, anxiety?
It sounds so simple, like simply put, and I know it's easier said than done, but I think that we're all capable of doing so many things. And it's really just about accepting that, hey, yeah, I can do it. I just have to put in the work, put in the time. That common saying of nothing worth having comes easy. So accepting it might be a long road, might be really difficult. It might look like never ending, but I think that if we all just maximize our potential, we can really do anything that we set our mind to. And I feel like a Disney Channel person saying that, but that's what I really believe that. And, that is coming from someone who thought so little of themselves and that thought that they would never do hardly anything. And, now I'm doing cool things and I'm delivering beautiful babies and saving people's lives. And that, I think that speaks for itself. Like, you can do everything that you want. Just what do you want to do and how are you going to do it? So I think that's just putting your thoughts are going to be your obstacle. So putting that aside and just being like, no, I'm going to do it, and then doing it. I think it is that simple, even though it's really not.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's great advice. It's really like a mindset shift for sure. And so throughout this, obviously, after you had your mindset shift where you're saying, I'm going to go through with this, I'm going to go to medicine. At what point did you realize that you wanted to start like documenting this entire journey and started to create like this YouTube presence that you've grown to like a massive scale at this point?
Yeah, no, that has been such a fun part of this whole thing. And looking back, oh gosh, I have so many videos. I didn't realize they just really accumulate. But back in the day when you're starting to get a hold of these cameras and these small handheld camcorders with like a flip out screen. And I remember we got those for Christmas, me and my sister, and we would make little videos on them. And I think that was really the beginning of me having this interest in digital creation of things. And then I would watch YouTube videos. I think I was like one of the like a first generation YouTube watcher type people, that early crowd. And I was always on YouTube and never watched TV. And so then I really grew people who were vlogging their lives, who started to document their lives, that grew on me. And I was like, this is pretty cool. And I am very fascinated by watching other people's lives. And it kind of inspired me to want to share mine. Not that mine was cool at all. And I don't think it needs to be cool to film your life. But I was like, I think I would just want to start filming things and putting things together. And so I actually started filming before I was even interested in medicine. And I have privated those videos since on my page because they're embarrassing. But then I was like, I think I need a purpose. Like, what am I doing here on YouTube? And then when I started having an interest in medical school, then I was like, maybe I'm going to document this process because I don't know what I'm doing and I'm sure others don't. So let me just start recording the process. And that's kind of where it took off. And then I enjoyed doing it. And so I just kept going from there.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. And kind of looking through your channel, I think what like stands out the most to like me is like your authenticity on camera. Like the way you create your videos and the content you share, like always allows like people to like genuinely connect with you. Like your content is so like down to earth, like the presence allows you to convey your message, but in a manner that allows each listener to hold on to their words. So like reflecting on this, did you ever imagine that it would grow to the scale that it has?
Oh my gosh. No, I had no idea. And I'm so grateful. And oh my gosh, I think that I've built, or we like the we is in my community, like we have built really the best space on the internet. And it is such a warm and welcoming place to be. And I'm so lucky to have all of these people who enjoy the authenticity and the vulnerability, and they really allow me to be myself. And I couldn't ask for anything more. And so it further encourages me to be like, okay, I'm going to keep sharing and just being real with these people about, my good days and my bad days. And if that makes at least one person feel better and feel seen or heard, then I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to keep doing it because I think it's helping people. And the feedback says that. And so I'm like, okay, I'll keep doing it. And it's kind of strange at times, but I do love it. It's a great part of my life.
Absolutely. And kind of like speaking on your channel as a whole, I think like generally speaking, a lot of healthcare professionals tend to lean towards only talking about like the positives that go into medicine. But in reality, like it's such a roller coaster. Like having like reflecting, like I'm a fourth year right now. And so like looking back, like there were a lot of ups and downs along the way. And so I guess like, why do you think it's so important to showcase both of these like pros and cons on your channel?
Absolutely. I think that I do see a lot of creators, and it's not, it's not their fault. It's not, and maybe they are having a great time, but I see a lot of fabricating of the process. And that person who gets up at 5 a.m. and they have their perfect, beautiful latte and they've got their candles set up. That's great. And it can very much be like that. but a lot of the time it's not. And a lot of people cannot relate to that perfect life looking, because it is just messy. I mean, studying around the clock and just barely having time to take care of yourselves, that's really where it's at. And that's where people can really relate to that. And they want to relate to that because it makes them feel less alone in their really isolating process. So I think that showing, yeah, you could show this really nice, perfect lifestyle, and that's nice to look at sometimes. But then showing that icky, gritty side, like I said, that's what's real. And although it might strike people as, I know I get comments often saying like, "Oh my gosh, like you're always complaining or you're upset." And I'm like, well, yeah, this freaking sucks. It sucks. And I cannot fake it. No matter how hard I try, I cannot pick up a camera and lie. So it's like, well, it's either I produce content that's honest or I cannot film at all because I can't fake it. So that's really where I'm at with it. It's like you either do it and film it all, or I can't fake it.
Yeah, of course. Like it's really important to kind of share that behind the scenes look that I think is like lost at times. Especially like I was saying, like a lot of content creators will only show like that the example you said, where like I am not waking up with like a candle lit and enjoying like my like nice mocha. Like I'm like I have bags under my eyes and my house is a mess and it is not like that.
Right.
Pajama pants are still on.
Right. And I think that I want people to really know what they're getting into, because a lot of people, they see these glorified portrayals of what medicine or medical school is like, and that's what they think it's going to be like, and it's the complete opposite. It's nice and it's fun, and if you have a passion, you do it, but it is not that enjoyable, so I really think it's important for people to show those really terrible days. And even if it is being super vulnerable, I want people to know what they're getting into, because we need good doctors who are going to stick through to the end. And if you have this false idea of what it's actually like, and then you get there and you're like, oh my God, this is terrible, then you quit. And it's this bad thing. So I want people to know what they're getting into, and try to show it as much as have content creators show it as much as they can, so people have an idea.
Absolutely. And I think that's so great that you're doing that. And it's also time, I think, to get a little nostalgic and look back at like your time in medical school. And having just finished my own third year clerkships about like several months ago, I finally found some time to like reflect on it all. And I was talking with Andy the other day, and we were just kind of lamenting like how long and like difficult that process was. And for me personally, I think third year was easily the hardest year of my 10-year educational journey because I went to pharmacy
Oh
school
my
before
gosh.
medicine.
Oh
And
my
with that in
gosh.
mind, and with your experience as a resident now, what do you think was like the hardest year of this entire process?
I'm going to separate it, because in medical school, to me, my second year was the worst year. And I think that it was because it was COVID times, and I was, you're studying for your boards, and our program really ups up the curriculum second year. So it was just miserable. You couldn't go to the
Mhm.
gym. There was nothing, no socializing with anyone. So that was very detrimental to, I think, a lot of students' mental health at the time. So that was very difficult. And then, but now being a resident, I'm only a little over halfway through my first year. And those first few months, I literally just finished filming a video about this. But I was talking about my first few months as a resident. Those are the worst months of my entire life. And I didn't expect that. I knew everyone would tell me that it's going to be tough. It's terrible and it sucks, but it gets better. And was like, oh, whatever, it'll be fine. I'll make it through. That was awful. Like I cannot even describe how terrible I felt during those months. And I do feel better now, but I'm surprised that I made it through those months, to be honest.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I definitely want to explore that a little bit more. And so I think I saw in like a recent video too that you mentioned that you had thoughts about like even walking away from residency as a whole. So I don't want to like step on the shoes of this other video that you just filmed, but like I guess maybe do you have any advice now that you didn't make that decision? Is there anything that you would like to share with like someone who might be thinking the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely a little plug for that video. It'll be up like next week. So definitely watch that. But I, I don't, it's tough because that was absolutely the lowest low. And it took me a very long time for me to admit that to myself because I knew it was bad. I knew that my mental health was so bad and I was so ready to walk away. But then I'm like weighing out, what do I do if I quit, then what? I have this degree that's meant for one thing and it's really all that I want to do. Then I can't do that. I have this $100,000 of debt. What am I going to do with that? And so every other option, I'm like, we're kind of in a gridlock here and I'm going to be stuck here, or there's going to be an alternative that's going to be super bad. So it was really about admitting to myself that this is my current state and I need to accept that. And I really need to fight for myself so I can push through because I know that everything is temporary. And it really took a lot more than probably what we could sit down and go through today. But I really just want, if people are going through that, especially those first few months of residency, I'm going to be one of those people that's like, it gets better. But like, I want you to be able to see through to the other side because I didn't think that I would see through to the second half of this first year, but yet I'm here. And I'm so glad. And I feel that I have been restored in my faith that this was what I was supposed to do. This is why I'm doing this. I love what I get to do. I love being an OBGYN. And in that moment, in the first few months of intern year, I didn't see that at all. And God, it's just, I want people to reach out for help and look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I need help. And that's okay. And reaching out to family, friends, a therapist, a hotline, whatever it is, I think it's just recognizing, and then how are you going to get out of your hole? Yeah, kind of dark and grim, and I'm sorry, but it was just terrible. And I just opened all my wounds trying to film that video just 20 minutes ago.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry to continue on with
No, it's all good.
the pain there.
It's okay.
But hopefully like that message will obviously reach people and they will get through these difficult times and the darkness that might be around them throughout this residency process. And I think like one of the things I'm sure you can relate is like residency can be so isolating because like you're working such different hours, all these night shifts that kind of cycle in, 24-hour shifts where like you don't even have time to sleep. And, as an individual who's going to anesthesia, like we have 24-hour, OB call and all that stuff as well. So it's definitely something that, I don't think we have it nearly as bad as OB-GYN does, but it's certainly something to think about.
Yeah, every specialty has their respective bads. And I'm really hoping that we get to a time in residency training where this is not a thing, because it's the whole system as a whole. And that's a whole other can of worms. But I'm really, really rooting for people putting their message out and saying, this is wrong. We need to change. I have said it multiple times, but I don't have a solution to how we can improve this at this time, because I do recognize we need a certain amount of training and exposure to things. And we do need to build up the endurance to, think on our feet when we're super tired, but there's a limit for our human ability, and so I'm rooting for a time where we're trained with more humane, I guess, circumstances, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to put into like perspective, what other specialty or like profession would tolerate this level of work and still be considered safe to be on the job? I can't think of one, to be honest.
No, can't think of one. And I know that Dr. Jake Goodman, he's one of our good friends and a creator in this space. And his TED talk that he did he opens it up with, pilots don't have long shifts. They don't have 24-hour shifts like we do. And they're flying a plane responsible for a bunch of people's lives. But then a doctor or surgeon can operate on the 25th hour of a shift without having slept, and somehow that's okay. And so there's something to be said about that, and he makes a good point in that video.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really interesting way to put it. And so I guess on a happier note, quote unquote, given that like I'm on the horizon of match day, it's like a very strange experience where I think it's like a culmination of like all this hard work that I put in over the last 4 years for med school, not to mention, all the years before that. And it's come to this like weird climax in like the whole plot of like my professional career. And it's kind of weird to articulate, but like the surge of emotions, like it's scary, it's exciting, it's blissful all at the same time. So I'm curious to know, like, what are your perspectives on what I should expect from this like momentous day?
Oh my gosh. It's the best day. And I think that if you don't match, great. I'm not talking about like you in particular. I think with anyone listening, if
Hmm.
you're, getting to match day and if you don't match, it's okay. There's a reason for everything, right? And that's just an opportunity for you to do something else in the meantime or reply to something else. And maybe it's a blessing in disguise. But no matter what happens, the day it's already been decided, your fate. And it's exciting. Like this is a huge new chapter. And I think just getting that email, or if you're opening a letter with your classmates, I don't know, it's a moment of relief. And I think you get to acknowledge all of the work that you've done and pat yourself on the back, like, wow, I made it here. And yeah, I'm like a few months from graduating from medical school, but I have made it to match day and I've done this thing. And whether it's what you wanted or not what you wanted, I think that you'll come to accept that it'll be good for you. And um I don't know, it's just like a new chapter. And I remember
Hmm.
mine, and it was the best thing ever. And it was such a beautiful day. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And I don't know, I feel like everyone should document their match day. And if they're super happy, like just to be able to look back on that moment, it's an incredible feeling. And not one that I don't know if there's going to be a future experience that makes you feel like that ever again.
Absolutely. Yeah. It just became like so real for me because yesterday was the day where like the rank list locked. And so my
Oh,
future's set at this point, whether or not it's
yeah.
matching or I guess we'll come to see what that is. But yeah, I think that's also a really good perspective too, to like record like this like very high momentous moment,
Yeah.
because like you were saying, if you have to go back or you're having a difficult time, you can look back at that video and be like, this is what it's all about. Like, this is why I did this long journey in the first place. You can almost use it as like an anchoring point to kind of look back
Right.
at simpler
Right.
times, perhaps.
Right. And I've done that with my footage from my match day because I'm like, who was that? Like that girl who was so excited to be match OBGYN. And now there's this girl who's so sad and hates her life. And so watching that would help reinvigorate me and be like, okay, I remember that feeling and I want to be that. And so, yeah, I recommend documenting it.
Absolutely. I'm going to have to do that now. I didn't
Do
have any
it.
special plans, but yeah, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, just do it. You
Um,
don't have to share it, but just for yourself at least.
Absolutely. And so kind of looking back, we were talking a little bit about like, the change that we're looking to enact. And obviously I'm still in medical school at this point, but one of the things that I've come to notice, like especially as like a fourth year student, is there is something, I guess, like what I would like to change is maybe shortening medical school or like cutting off like some of the fourth year bits and pieces, just because like I'm not really sure what I'm paying for at this point. I don't know if you have the similar opinion about that, but if you have any other suggestions, I'm curious to know, like, how do you think we can improve the medical education system as a whole?
Uh, there's a lot of issues, I think, with our medical schools. I think there's a huge problem with transparency with funds of school, like where is all that money going? And I know that a lot of students don't really see the tuition that they've paid, and especially in fourth year. And you raised such a good point about it should be shortened. It's fourth year, oh my gosh, over half the year I didn't do diddly squat. And I'm like, I'm still paying the same tuition, but I haven't been on campus or utilizing any school related services for months. Like, why am I paying the same tuition? And it's super strange. And I never actually thought about shortening it, but I think that fourth year could be condensed into maybe just a few months and then let them graduate and reduce the tuition costs there. Um, I don't know. I think that's a great question. And I think money is a big factor and it drives a lot of weird decisions. I haven't put a lot of thought into the changes that should be made. I feel like I should have written those things down when I was a frustrated little med student, pissed about everything that the school was doing. But I know that to me, it felt very money driven, and I don't think I'm alone in just my school. I think it's unanimous across most medicals or all medical schools that money's a huge factor, and it drives the reason why they do weird things and require certain things. And I think that we need to look at is it benefiting the student or is it benefiting the pockets of whoever, And I don't know. I haven't
Hmm.
thought that much about it, but now that you mentioned about shortening fourth year, I think that and most people would be in agreement with that.
Absolutely. Just some interesting like thought experiments to see. Maybe
Yeah.
they'll take ground someday, but I don't know.
One day.
And
One day.
one day we'll see. So let's talk a little bit more about OB-GYN and what it's like to be a resident. So do you mind telling us a little bit about like what the average day is like for maybe some of our listeners who might not be familiar with the training that you receive?
Absolutely. So I guess I'll talk about a day on labor and delivery because that's where we spend most of our time.
Hmm.
And if for those who don't know about OBGYN or if you're interested in it, where we deal with women's health. So we have a lot of clinic and stuff like that, but we also deal with, the female reproductive system and stuff relating to like strictly gynecology. And so that requires surgery, and that's where hysterectomies and like ovarian cystectomy, all these different types of surgeries. And then we have our like aside along with the clinic stuff is like preventive health for women's health. And then we have obstetrics. And so are all of our pregnant ladies and dealing with labor and delivery. And so we spend our training like across the 4 years. We learn all of that stuff, but we do spend a lot of time on labor and delivery floor, and that's probably the most crazy schedule. Our day in particular in my program, we start our shift, a day shift at 6 a.m. where we sign out with the night team. And then we go and do our postpartum round. So all of our people that have delivered, we got to go see them and make sure they're okay, maybe get them out. And then we deal with all of our people in labor, and it could vary how many are laboring at once. And then we also have triage, which is kind of like a mini obstetrics emergency department on the floor where pregnant people come straight up from the emergency department and we see them for whatever complaint it is, whether it's like, oh my gosh, my water broke, or I have a headache and it won't go away. And so we have those. And then we also, while we're on labor and delivery, we're covering the emergency department for people who come in with, say, like vaginal bleeding, or they were pregnant and then they had a miscarriage and now they're in the ED because of vaginal bleeding. So we have so many different things that we are balancing in a day shift. And it is pretty wild. And it's really, I love it. And the chaos is really addicting and fantastic, but it is super exhausting, and it requires you to be very good at multitasking. And so we'll go throughout the whole day. We don't get breaks, obviously. We just eat when we can, go to the bathroom when we can. And guaranteed every time you go to the bathroom, someone's going to call you for something. There's been so many times where I'm like, I'm going to pee super quick before this patient delivers. And then I'm like trying to go to the bathroom, and then they're like, hey, she's delivering. And I literally I just pull my pants up and run out of the bathroom. And then we are done around 4:30 and we sign out to the night team. And it's wild. It's madness, but it is so addicting. It takes a certain type of person to love it. And once you know, you know.
Absolutely. Is this something then that you're considering doing in the future, or are you thinking like fellowships down the line?
Oh, I don't want to do a fellowship. I am really done with training. Um, like already, not even at finished with my first year, but I don't want to train anymore. I just want to do the thing. I do know that when we graduate from residency for OBGYN, you have to work in a facility where you can get exposure to a lot of different things, because we actually have to take oral boards. And I don't know if you've heard of
Hmm.
it, but you have
Yep.
to get a case list together from different things. And then you got to go to Texas or whatever and have this huge pimping session of everything that you know or don't know. And then you are, that's your oral boards and you got to pass those. So you can't just go into one thing right out of residency. So I don't know. I'm not really sure what the future holds for me. But I think I, at some point, will want to. I haven't thought about it too much. I'm just like, I just want to get through this process and hopefully it doesn't eat me alive in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially as like an intern at this point in time. Like that's like it seems like it's so far down the line that it might not be something that you've even like kind of played around with yet. But for our listeners who might not be too familiar, I think there's like a
Yeah.
lot of like different opportunities for OB/GYN residents to go into fellowships. So like what fellowships are available?
Yeah, so I guess the main ones that I can think of off the top of my head right now are the urogynecology, so pelvic floor stuff, there's pelvic floor specialists, and then there's urogyne, so like you're dealing with more of the urinary incontinence type things, a lot of other things other than that, but that's what I can think of. And then maternal fetal medicine, so high risk pregnancies. And then there is the REI, so reproductive endocrinology and infertility. I think that's what it stands for. So people who are having a hard time getting pregnant, and you're dealing with those. So there's a lot of others, and there's a niche for everything. But if you want to not just be a generalist, there's probably a little fellowship opportunity for you, but super competitive. And I'm not interested in any of them.
Alrighty, awesome. Well, thanks for the overview right there. And our listeners already
Yeah.
probably know this, and as you know, but residency training is extremely hard, and every resident has to make sacrifices along the way. So, with this in mind, I think it's like really impressive that you're able to still keep up with the content creation schedule that you have. So, I'm curious to know, like, how do you find time to work on your brand while balancing the responsibilities of your training?
For my content creation, it is super tough to stick with it, but I love doing it. And I'm just super disciplined. So I'm like, I got to make time for it, something that I want to do. So every single day, more towards the evening, probably at the very end of my day, I'm responding to emails. If I have time, or if I feel creative, I'll do some editing for the week's video. And I try to stay a week ahead of my editing schedule. So if I have days where I just completely cannot edit, then I give myself some wiggle room. And I don't know, I'm a one person team, so it is very difficult, but I make the time because I want to. But then there have been some weeks recently where I have not been able to upload a video simply because I didn't film, because it's absolutely insane during my shifts and I can't whip out the camera because it's too insane, or I couldn't edit the video in time, whatever it is. And so I've given myself some more grace and being like, it is what it is, and your community will be there once you upload the next time, and they're so understanding. So I feel very appreciative of that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, like I'm struggling to do it and I'm a fourth year right now, not doing anything. So kudos to you.
No, it's tough. Content creation's tough. It's no joke.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting close to the end of our interview today, and I think it's time for our famous 3 questions. And these are the same questions we ask every individual who comes on our podcast. So, question number 1: how do you maintain a work life balance in your demanding profession? And do you have any tips for others who are striving to achieve this same kind of balance?
I think it goes back to discipline. I'm pretty type A, and people are like, how are you doing it? How are you going to the gym? I'm like, make the time. You have time to do scrolling on your phone and like looking at TikTok. You could be doing so many other things with your time. And I think it's just a matter of want. And we all want a work life balance, right? We want to have our cake and eat it too. And sometimes it's difficult to do that. But I think that looking at your schedule and looking at what's realistic that you can accomplish to make yourself happy while also doing your due diligence and, addressing the responsibilities that you have to address. Finding the middle ground there, because you can't have it all, but you give yourself some and then you feel good about it. And that's, I think, where the balance kind of comes from. And if you're struggling with that, you got to just do it. Like, Nike, that whole just do it. You just got to do it. I feel like Shia LaBeouf. Just do it.
Do it. Just do it.
You really like there's if I can do it and we're like if residents can have balance and they're working 80 to 100-hour work weeks, then nobody has any room for complaining. Like because you can do it. It's just a matter of how bad do you want to have the balance. And taking care of yourself, I think should be the priority in that life balance versus like, oh, I would like to go to a party or I would like to do this. Like, just make sure that you are at the top of your list when you're looking at your life, just because if you don't feel whole or full, then I think that you won't feel that you find balance, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Absolutely. I think like to kind of paraphrase, and it kind of relates to something I saw recently where like you should always like pay yourself first, in the sense that you need to prioritize like your, needs as a whole, like whether that's like getting out and seeing family or like reconnecting with like someone you've lost touch with, like that is like the priority. Obviously like your medical education next. And then like the content creation is certainly fun. And if that's something you really value, then you need to prioritize that too. But like, it seems like at times like the content creation and the medical education are completely pulling at each other from different directions. And so like you need to make sure like that you aren't pulled apart in that process too.
I agree. I completely agree with that.
Alrighty. So do you have any last minute recommendations to students or graduates who are interested in pursuing a career similar to your own?
No, I think the first question to ask yourself is, are you passionate about this thing? And how bad do you want it? Are you willing to jump through so many different hoops and have a lot of odds against you at a lot of different points in time? Are you going to be able to push through that and you have the passion to get through to the other side? Because you can do anything that you want, like I said earlier, but if the passion is not there and the drive is not there and you're kind of like, I'm on the fence about it, then I think it's going to be a lot harder. So it's definitely going to take a lot of passion and drive. And I feel like I say that a lot and I'm a broken record for saying it, but it's really true. And if you don't love it, then don't do it.
Awesome. And our final question for the night, what are your personal, professional, or business-oriented goals that you'd like to accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, okay. I like this question. I think, okay, professional goals, I would say like it's going to take a few years for me to graduate and I would like to do that first, graduate residency, but I really would like to hold a place somewhere in the space of trying to change this whole residency system. I don't know how exactly I'm going to get involved in doing that. And it's going to take a lot of work and brainstorming and being realistic about how I can actually make a difference. But that is a huge goal of mine. And I would really like to do that. And it'll probably take way more than 5 years to make that happen. But that's something that I am striving for at this moment in time. For myself and my business, I guess. I just want to keep growing. I want to keep providing content that is helpful for people. I don't want to be a person on the internet that's just dumping out stuff that is brainless and that doesn't actually serve a good purpose. That is, I don't know, I want people to learn and help themselves from my content. So as long as I'm doing that, then I am succeeding in those goals. And then of course, like financially, I think my loans, I need to tackle those because I'm so in debt from my student loans. And so addressing those would be very nice. So controlling my spending and just being smarter with my finances, it's a huge thing I gotta work on.
Of course. I think we could all be a little bit better with our finances, especially with I'm thinking about my loans like going into action in a couple months, like my med school loans plus my pharmacy loans. So it's going to be quite a big number.
That's wild. That's insane. Props to you for doing both of those things.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Alrighty. So we've come to the end of our interview today, and I'd like to thank all of our listeners for the support. If you have any additional questions about the medical school journey, check out my website at www.physicianpharmacist.com. Before we let you go, Rachel, how can our listeners get in touch with you or learn more about you?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I check all of my YouTube comments every single day. So youtube.com/rachelsouthard. I also check my Instagram DMs every single day. So you can follow me on Instagram at rachelsouthard and DM me there. And yeah, I'm there at your disposal if you need anything.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for being on the podcast. It really means a lot, and I appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, so thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. It was nice to sit down and chat with you. So I love what you're doing. Keep doing the podcasts. And I'm really excited for a lot of people to learn from all that you have to talk about.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. You too.